The air hung heavy with the promise of rain, a damp weight that clung to Helena Almeida's skin as she stood at the edge of her husband's open grave. One hand gripped a tattered umbrella, its fabric sagging under the drizzle, while the other rested protectively on her 7-month pregnant belly, where her unborn child stirred faintly, as if sensing her dread. Beside her, her 10-year-old son, Lucas, clung to the sleeve of her worn coat, his small fingers trembling, his wide eyes red from silent tears, searched her face for reassurance she couldn't give. Around them, whispers slithered through the small crowd like a cold breeze. "Such a shame! So young," someone murmured. "She won't last a month without him," another voice replied, sharp and low, meant for her ears. Helena's gaze drifted to her in-laws across the grave, their faces pale and unyielding, dressed in tailored black that seemed to mock her grief. Their eyes were dry, their lips curled with a quiet disdain that had shadowed her marriage from the start. Helena's chest tightened as she remembered the years of building a life with her husband, turning his family-struggling flower shop into a thriving business with her designs, her late nights, her heart poured into every petal. They had never accepted her, not when she married their son, not when she helped transform their dusty backroom into a storefront that drew crowds. And certainly not now, as the final shovelful of earth thudded onto the coffin. Each clump of hammer blowed her fragile hope. Her shoes sank into mud, the cold seeping into her bones, but she clung to one thought. Her husband would have ensured she and their children were safe. He had promised. Inside the lawyer's office, the air was stifling, thick with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee. Helena sat rigid, Lucas pressed against her side, his warmth the only anchor in the room's sterile silence. The lawyer's voice droned, formal and detached, as he read the will. "To my wife, Helena Almeida, I leave our home at 42 Acacia Street, all my shares in Flores and Design Almeida and the 1972 van." Relief flooded her, loosening the knot in her chest. The house, the business, the van, her husband's sentimental relic, rusty and worn but oddly dear to him. It was enough. It had to be. Then came the laugh, sharp, cruel, slicing through her fragile calm. Her sister-in-law leaned forward, eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, Helena, that's not how this works." Her father-in-law's voice followed, cold as the rain outside. "The house, the business, their family property. You married in. You don't own anything. The van, that's yours. Be grateful we're letting you keep that scrap heap." The lawyer frowned, flipping through papers, but the old man's shout silenced him. "Enough! You want to fight us, Helena? Take us to court. See how far you get, pregnant and penniless." Helena's breath caught, her vision blurring as the room seemed to tilt. Lucas's small hand squeezed hers, his fear a mirror to her own. The weight of her pregnancy pressed against her ribs, each kick from the baby a reminder of the life she had to protect. She wanted to scream, to claw back what was hers, but the memory of her in-laws' ruthlessness stopped her. They thrived on power, on crushing those who dared resist. So she said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line as she took the van's keys, the metal cold and jagged in her palm. Outside, their laughter chased her through the drizzle, a sound that burned deep in the rain, soaking her coat. The van sat behind the funeral home, a hulking relic under a flickering streetlight. Its paint was peeling, rusted patches crumbling like dead leaves under Helena's trembling fingers. Lucas trailed behind, his sneakers scuffing the gravel, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom, we're not really going to live here, are we?" The hope in his tone pierced her heart. She couldn't answer, not yet. She opened the driver's door, and a wave of stale air hit her, oil, mildew, and the faint metallic tang of decay. The seats were cracked, the dashboard coated in dust, but she could still see her husband's fingerprints etched in the grime, a ghost of his presence. That night, they parked in a vacant lot behind a shuttered hardware store, the hum of distant traffic blending with the patter of rain on the roof. Helena wrapped Lucas in a thin blanket, tucking him into the passenger seat, his small body curled tight against the cold. She lay in the back, her pregnant belly making every position ache, but the van's walls shielded them from the storm. It was something. As shadows passed by, their voices drifted through the cracked window. "That's Almeida's widow, isn't it? Lost everything, I heard." too proud to beg. Helena's jaw clenched, her eyes fixed on the van's rusted ceiling. Each word was a needle, but the baby's gentle kicks grounded her. You don't have time to break. The next morning, dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving. Helena pulled a frayed sweater from their single suitcase, kissing Lucas's forehead as he slept, his face soft but haunted. She stepped into the cold, her breath visible in the misty air. No home, no business, no safety net. Just a rusting van and a fire in her chest that refused to die. If this is all they left me, I'll make it enough. Days blurred into a grueling rhythm. Mornings began with a walk to a corner bakery, where Helena bought yesterday's bread with coins scraped from her pockets. She and Lucas ate in the van, the crumbs falling onto the cracked seats. She scoured bulletin boards for odd jobs, cleaning, hauling, arranging flowers for pennies. The van became their fragile sanctuary. Lucas drew stick figures on the fog windows, their tiny hands linked in silent solidarity. Helena scrubbed the interior, tried to erase the smell of neglect, to make it feel less like a tomb and more like a home. One morning, while attacking a stubborn rust stain near the back door, her sponge caught on a sharp edge. A flake of corrosion fell away, revealing a glint of metal beneath. Not the dull steel she expected, but something warmer, richer, gleaming in the pale sunlight. Her heart stuttered. She ran her thumb over it, the surface impossibly smooth. Scraping harder, she uncovered more, a patch that caught the light like molten gold. Her breath hitched, not with wild excitement, but with a cautious, dawning clarity. Her husband's voice echoed in her mind. "This van is our insurance." She thought it was just nostalgia, his odd attachment to a worthless relic. Now, pressing her palm against the heavy panel, she felt its impossible weight. The truth settled slowly, like sunlight creeping over the horizon. This wasn't just a van. It was a secret, and secrets were safest when kept close. Helena moved carefully. She acted as if nothing had changed, parking the van under the same crooked streetlight, letting its rusted exterior hide its truth. In secret, she pried a thin strip of gold from the inner door, small enough to fit in her pocket. She sold it to a discreet jeweler across town, one who asked no questions. The cash was a lifeline, new clothes for Lucas, prenatal vitamins, enough food to silence the gnawing hunger in their bellies. With the next sale, she rented a modest stall at a quiet street market, armed with second-hand vases and wholesale flowers. She began crafting bouquets, her hands rediscovering the artistry that had once built her husband's business. Customers noticed. "Who's the new florist?" "She's got a gift," they whispered. "Isn't that Almeida's widow?" Thought she was living in a van. The gossip no longer stung. It fueled her. Helena arrived before dawn, stayed past dusk, and poured every cent back into her craft. Better flowers, sharper tools, a sturdier display. Across town, her in-laws' empire crumbled. The business they'd stolen bled under their mismanagement, missed deliveries, unpaid bills, whispers of debt. Helena overheard it all at her stall. Customers' chatter blending with the scent of roses and eucalyptus. The Almeidas can't pay their suppliers. Never worked a day in their lives. She said nothing, arranging lilies with steady hands, a quiet satisfaction blooming in her chest. The van remained her silent partner, its secret gold funding her rise while she guarded its truth. When her daughter, Rosa, was born, Helena's stall had grown into a sunlit corner shop with a green awning and a sign in gold letters, Lucas and Rosa. The air inside was alive with the fragrance of peonies and lilacs, a warmth that drew customers not just for flowers, but for Helena's quiet grace. She remembered their names, their stories, slipping a sprig of baby's breath into each bouquet for luck. Her in-laws' fall was no longer gossip, but headlines. Almeida florist chain declares bankruptcy. Family home up for auction. Helena read the news with a calm that felt like justice, not vengeance. One afternoon, as she tied a ribbon around a bride's bouquet, the shop's door creaked open. Her father-in-law stood there, thinner, his suit frayed at the elbows. Her sister-in-law followed, her once smug posture deflated. "Helena," he began, his voice a shadow of its former arrogance, "we're in a rough spot. The house is gone, the business too. We just need a place to stay. just for a while. Helena's hands never faltered, her fingers brushing the soft eucalyptus leaves. She didn't look up until the ribbon was perfect. "I remember," she said softly, her voice steady as stone, "the day you told me the van was all I deserved, that my children deserved nothing." She met their eyes then, not with anger, but with the quiet power of someone who turned rust into gold. Her sister-in-law's gaze flickered to the shop's gilded sign, then to the gold-plated pen Helena used for receipts. Realization sparked in her eyes, but she said nothing. Helena slid the bouquet to the waiting bride. "I'm afraid I don't have room," she said, her tone gentle but unyielding. "Some things are too small to carry the weight of those who tried to break them." They left without another word, the door's bell ringing like a final note. Helena exhaled, not with triumph, but with a deep, unshakable freedom. As the afternoon sun poured through the shop's windows, bathing the flowers in golden light, Helena sat at the counter. Rosa slept in a wicker basket nearby, her tiny breaths a soft rhythm. Lucas sketched in a notebook, his pencil scratching out a world of his own. Outside, the van stood in its usual spot, rusted and unassuming, a silent witness to their survival. No passerby would guess the fortune it had held, the secret that had given Helena a second chance. But it wasn't just the gold that built this life. It was her refusal to break, her choice to create when surrender would have been easier, her ability to see beauty in what others deemed worthless. Sometimes she pictured her husband standing in the shop's doorway, arms crossed, his quiet pride shining in his eyes. He'd known. He'd left her the one thing they could never take. Helena brushed a stray petal from the counter, breathing in the sweet, green air of her shop. She didn't need their mansion, their stolen business, or their name. She had roots now, deep and strong, and they were hers alone. When customers asked about the old van, she smiled faintly. It's just part of the story. Because the truth was, gold could hide in the ugliest places, and those who laughed at its worth often handed you the key to your own freedom.